All right, guys, what's going on? As promised with this channel, I haven't forgot about all the biking content. So here with my buddy Pete right here. And a couple of years ago, we did the Paris to Ancaster. We do the half race. It's about 40K. I kind of smoked him. It was about a 15-minute gap, I think.
I think it was a half hour.
There was a gap there. That's all we'll say.
Yeah.
And so what were some of your issues with that one?
I think my biggest issue was an improper bike. You know, hardtail, 26-inch tire. It weighed about 45 pounds, so it was a little bit of an anchor. This year we upgraded a little bit more of a cross bike, gravel style. So hopefully I can shed some time off with that and get a little bit of extra training in.
Awesome. Now, you had some complaints with the bike though, right?
Yeah, the main issues, I had a lot of uncomfortableness on the current bike and I just couldn't get settled. So I think the big thing now is getting a proper fit and getting an expert to tell me where I need to be so I can get to where I need to be.
All right, so we're heading into Freewheel Cycle. We're gonna finish up a ride here, but get over there and get them actually properly fit for this bike and see what happens, eh?
Sounds good.
All right, sweet. Let's check it out. And like magic, we're in Freewheel Cycle. Pete's ready to get fitted for his bike, and we've got Anthony, our pro bike fitter, ready to get him set up. So let's go through the process.
So first thing we're doing is interview. So we'll do an interview, just find some background about you as a cyclist, what you do day to day, give me an idea of any issues that we might come across in the fit. Then we'll do a little bit of a small physical assessment, and then we'll get on the bike.
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay, so starting with the background. So we chat a little bit. So what do you do for occupation?
So as a occupation, I'm a firefighter with the city of Hamilton.
Yep. Cool. And so how much riding do you do?
Right now I'm trying to average around 150K per week.
Okay, cool.
So that's kind of my goal for the up and coming summer. I would like to get about 5,000K on the rig by the end of the season. So that's kind of where my goal is.
Okay, and so what kind of speed are you doing for most rides?
I'm averaging between about 26 and 30 kilometers an hour, depending on the day.
Okay, cool. And so is this mostly road riding, mountain?
It's kind of on and off, yeah. So I try to go between like the rail trail and on the road and try to get as much bike path and stay off the road as much as possible.
Okay, cool. And so do you do any racing?
I don't do a ton, but I am training for the Paris to Ancaster coming up, so I'm trying to get all fit and trim so I can beat Josh. Okay. He destroyed me. I don't know if you've heard the story, but last year he absolutely annihilated me. And I was riding a pretty awful rig. It was a 26-inch hardtail, weighed about 45 pounds. So this is my big excuse that I'm going with. So then when I upgraded to the gravel cross bike, and it's just so uncomfortable right now. So this is gonna be my first race and really kind of giving it a
So it's my fault
if I lose, yeah, it's gonna be your fault. So you better do a good job.
See, okay. I don't know if we can continue anymore. This might have to stop here. Okay, cool. So you're serious recreational.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, it's serious recreational. I enjoy kind of getting better and stronger and faster every year, but I still like to enjoy cycling. So I don't
Beating
try to
Josh is the main priority.
Just beating Josh, yeah, that is as
but
serious as it gets, but it's a pretty big deal.
Cool.
Bragging rights for a year.
Yeah, and so how long have you been cycling for?
This is about 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. As of right now, usually about the 45-minute mark on the bike, I start to have some issues in my lower back. I get a numbness and tingling in my right foot and some tingling in my hands. Okay. And generally after that, it's hard to want to continue on.
Yes. Yeah, that's not the way it should be, and we'll work on fixing that today. And so on the bike problems we kind of mentioned. So shoulder, you've had some shoulder issues.
Yeah, I've separated my shoulder, separated my shoulder a ton of times. So I actually had surgery on that done about 5 years ago, and a couple collarbone breaks and some sprains and strains.
And does the shoulder bug you on the bike?
My neck. So I think the shoulder contributes to kind of neck pain when I'm kind of down in the drops and.
Okay. And then low back, you said, and then right foot, middle toes go.
Yeah, they go numb and they lose color. Okay. So it's kind of strange. Yeah.
At that, you kind of said 45-minute was the kind of magic number, but do you get them all the time, or is it under certain circumstances more than others, or?
You know what? It's just the longer I'm in the saddle, the hands just kind of I'm always shaking it off or adjusting my riding position. I can't really stay in one position too long on the bike, so I'm always alternating between drops and hoods and flat, and everywhere it just seems to be like a little bit of like relief for maybe 10 minutes, and then it's like I want to just get home. I want to get off this thing.
Okay, cool. So that's enough for background. So let's do some physical measurements and get going from there.
Perfect.
Cool. we're gonna look at actually flexibility in your like low back.
Okay.
So I get you actually touch your toes or wherever you can touch your knees, low shins, whatever it is.
Okay.
And I'm gonna measure the angle of your low back.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, that's good. And so, yeah, flexible. We had the angle about 17 degrees there, which, anyways, you have a fair amount of flexibility there. Okay. We're not too concerned. Yeah, cool. So in general, as we've taken these measurements, really the idea is we're not focusing on any one of them. We've used them all to get a picture of what are your abilities? How flexible are you? How strong are you? Stuff like that. So we can look at a position. Are we looking for, can we do an aggressive position if you want it?
Yeah.
Or do we need to back off a little bit because maybe your body's not fit for that?
Okay.
So in general, you're on the green spectrum, so we're not too concerned about flexibility, and we should be able to fit you for as aggressively as you're interested in.
Okay.
So far, most of the stuff we've done is just body shape and size, a little bit of alignment. Now we're gonna get to some more flexibility as well as strength, particularly core strength we're interested in. So I'm gonna get you to do a plank test, and that's kind of our gauge on how strong your core is.
All right, perfect. Okay, cool. On the spot, let's do this.
Yeah.
All right.
For undetermined, this is the hardest part, it's an undetermined amount of time. So you can go as long as you can, stop whenever you want.
All right.
No big deal either way.
Okay.
Okay,
Start now.
Go ahead. This is the most riveting part of the video, I'm sure. Just watching you try and hold that plank, and I'm sure at some point there'll start to be little shakes occur.
Yeah, it's starting to shake.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
You get a green for that test.
Perfect.
The best score possible. So we're in the middle of just changing handlebars. So we used Pete's original actual handlebar measurements to see what size handlebars are, and we looked at his shoulder width that I took previously, and they're actually the same, so they match. So we're gonna put the handlebars on that he currently has, as well as what we actually would recommend for a starting point. As we get going, we'll play and see something slightly different. We'll do this, then we're gonna I'll go back to my computer, look at your setup that we took off your bike. So we did that earlier before we got rolling, and we're gonna take the position of your current bike and put on the fit bike.
Okay.
And so at the very beginning, we'll take a video of that, see what you look like at the start, then we'll kind of go through this iterative process of updating your bike, and we'll see kind of how the video looks different from beginning to end.
All right, cool.
All right, so before we get on the bike, we need to put some anatomical markers on your body.
Okay.
The idea here is I just want to know where these spots are. So hip, side of the knee, a couple ones on your feet, and some upper body. And the goal here is that we can use them so reproducibly I can actually put markers on there, get angles of your knee while you're pedaling, stuff like that.
Okay.
Cool? So we're good for markers. For now, get you riding. All right, yeah. So we have you doing about 150 watts right now. Get you to ride for a little bit, just warm up, get it at natural cadence, so whatever you think you typically would do. Yeah. If you know what the number is, there is a cadence here, and I can kind of give you some guidance.
I'm generally in like the 90, 95 RPM.
Okay, so I'll get you to watch this a little bit. And so how long have you had these cleats for?
These cleats are just about a season old.
Okay, and have you had your foot pain with and without them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess your alignment here looks great. It's not something I'm concerned about, but typically we have a little bit of float. I can assess, are you kind of leaning one way or the other with your foot, with your shoe? With no float, I hit the end on both sides, so it doesn't really, there is no float is really the problem here. Not problem, but it's what's going on. So I just want to see, is it maybe that the no float has caused some of your foot pain, but if the pain was there before, it's
because I went from XT Trail SPDs from before this, so I think those have about 6 or 7 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't notice. I find even when I'm on flats, once I set my foot,
you're good.
I don't shuffle around too much.
Yeah. The idea here is we're looking for somewhere in the 30 to 40 degree range, with 30 being more aggressive and 40 being less aggressive.
Yeah.
So right now you're at 44, so it's a little low. In general, we're gonna raise it as we go through this. Then we're gonna move through a little bit, and now we'll look at your fore-aft position. So the idea here again is we're looking for I mentioned previously knee over pedal spindle, looking at kind of fore aft, how far we want to move your saddle. And I use that little marker to give an idea of where your tibial tuberosity is, and that's the marker that we use for that fore aft knee over pedal spindle. So I'm gonna stick a vertical line at that. And so what we're looking at here is, in general, so one of the guidelines that's used often is to keep that knee over pedal spindle, to keep your knee at around the pedal spindle or behind. The big thing we're concerned about is if your knee's really far forward and you have some front of knee pain, so patellofemoral pain is what it's called, then we want to move you back. If you don't have any knee pain, it's not always the biggest concern, but it's something we do want to watch. So as I say that, you didn't mention any knee pain in our interview.
No, like the beginning of the last ride we went on, I had the very start of the ride, it felt a little bit kind of, but once I warmed up, I never really felt any issues continue on later on in the ride. But yeah, I had just recently dropped my seat because I was fussing with like kind of bringing it down because I feel like over top of my bars a lot where I'm really kind of like falling forward. And I think like that kept kind of lowering my seat to feel more planted in my pedals.
Okay, cool. This is good to know. So, so you are a little bit forward with your knee in this position. I'll actually put another marker on your pedals just to kind of double check some of that. But so it's possible that lowering your seat, you put your knee forward, and maybe that is a little bit of what caused that knee pain. So we'll watch as we go. I think if you raise your seat height, it'll probably deal with itself, but something to watch as we move on. Cool, so those are the two big things we'll start with. I'll play with your seat height a bit first, and we'll go from there. More small measurements. So another question. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the saddle?
The saddle, it doesn't have any specific spot that feels awful. It feels like I'm right on the outside of my sit bones though. Like it feels like it's I'm right at the outer limit.
Okay, cool. So part of the reason I ask is, so as we look at your body position, so one of the things I did when one of the tests, we did that kind of touch the toes test, and we actually weren't too interested with your touching the toes. We were interested in where your sacrum, kind of your low back, the angle of it relative to the ground. So how much can you bend that part of your body? And so you were able to bend it like almost flat with the ground. But when we look at you here on the bike, it's pretty vertical. And then you have kind of like a curved back to reach your handlebars. So that suggests you might not be loving your seat, and so you're almost rocking your pelvis back.
Try to find a
spot. Get off the boys. The boys might be hurting a little bit is or it indicates. And so maybe it's you're kind of trying to compensate for an uncomfortable saddle by moving your pelvis a bit. So maybe we'll play with the saddle a bit, and that could easily change your pelvis position, which will let you lean forward a bit and maybe feel a bit better on your handlebars as well. So we'll play with that as we go. Just a thought. So we just finished up updating the handlebars. We put in 44 centimeter wide ones, same as what's on your road bike, and actually same as what we measured your width your shoulders to be. Finished that, and we actually also then updated your crank arms. So what we did is we looked at your bike. We have 175 millimeter crank arms, and so the Fit bike as it was at 170 millimeter crank arms. So we it's actually simple change. We changed 2 bolts, and we can lengthen the crank arms and shorten them. We can go as short as 155s or up to 185. So if you're interested in a freakish fit, we can play with that today.
Good. Now, what was this little contraption you put on the seat? I noticed you added.
That's a great question. So this is actually a saddle pressure map. So what's going to go here is, as you're biking, I can record the pressures that are interface between the saddle and your rear end. And so we can look for patterns to find if the saddle is optimal for you, or if we think it might be causing some problems down the road.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, so we're at the finish of the fit here, and we're just gonna do a little recap of what we did. So when you kind of came in, we had some issues with things we were concerned about, some pain points, where toe numbness was a big one, a little bit of hand numbness. Those are the 2 big things that you were concerned about.
Kind of some lower back tightness, those kind of contributing to all of that.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing, a big point that often seems to be limiting everything that we find is saddle. So I know that wasn't anything you complained about, but as we kind of moved you around, it seemed like the saddle may be limiting some of that movement.
Yeah.
So one of the big things we focused on was finding the saddle that fit and seemed to kind of reduce pressure on the nose of the saddle,
Yeah.
that front part of your anatomy that we're worried about.
Yeah.
And so it seemed like as we kind of did that, you were able to move in positions that you weren't before.
Yeah.
When we came in, you had a very upright bike posture. We got that little bit more comfortable saddle position, and all of a sudden I could drop the nose, and we got your hands quite more aggressive position.
Yeah.
The words that kept surprising me were my drops feel the most comfortable,
Yeah.
which is great to hear that you're in that position and feeling comfortable, but indicated we get a little more aggressive and
Yeah.
feel a little bit better with that. So we had essentially found that good saddle. We were able to get in a more aggressive position, and that seemed to balance you out a little bit.
Yeah.
We moved the hands forward, down, moved your butt actually back a little bit, so you got a little bit wider base of support. Those seem to be the big changes that we're focused on today. I don't know, you can kind of comment a little bit on how you feel, but as we went, it seemed like you were indicating that pain in the foot seemed to come, but then went away.
Yeah, we made a couple adjustments where we were toying with the saddle height and the position, and when we went up that little bit too far and I felt the numbness come in, the foot started going kind of pins and needles, and then we backed it off, that disappeared. So it kind of found like a magic point of where we're at, but I found the biggest thing of how far we dropped the nose and how much more comfortable it felt. And it's strange that somebody my size needs a smaller bike than I should probably have. And it's kind of interesting that when you buy based off of you're 6'4", you should get a 58 centimeter frame because you're a big guy. Just doesn't hold true. So it's so important to get the proper size fit before you even step in to think of what bike you want to buy, because you're going to get your hopes up and you probably will just end up being a little bit more uncomfortable than you should be.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit. It seems like you have a long torso and you may have a little bit shorter legs. And so long torso and you got some pretty big arms.
Yeah.
So that means that front end's gonna be end up lower, and to get that low position, we need a little bit of a smaller frame potentially.
Yeah.
The current bike you have, the headset was quite high, and so our head tube was quite high, and so we ended up needing to drop that below what's possible.
Yeah. So that's amazing.
Awesome,
Can't
cool.
wait.
All right, so the one thing that I forgot to mention was that Anthony, who actually fit Pete for his bike, is doing his PhD in biomechanics. So the guy knows what he's talking about. And what were some of the things that he actually helped you do with this bike?
The biggest thing was realizing that I was riding a frame a little bit too large. This is currently a 58 centimeter frame, and I got fit for a 55 and a half. Because of the aggressive position I was able to get in, which was something I thought that actually blew me away. But from that fit, I was able to get the exact saddle height, which I could transfer over to my current bike. And as of my handlebars, I'm able to bring them down 3 centimeters of the total 9 that I actually need to drop to get the proper position. So it's quite of a drastic change. So essentially I'm at the position now where I was able to get this bike somewhat close for the race, and then be looking to sell this afterwards and buy the bike that's proper for me.
So which bike were you actually looking at?
I'm looking at
more of an adventure bike, right?
Yeah, more of an adventure bike. It's the Orbea Terra. It has a little bit more tire clearance, up to a 40C tire. So on longer bike packing, when you load the bike up a little bit more to do some more adventurous rides, I have that opportunity to do that.
It always sucks when you have to buy a new bike.
It's the worst. It's the absolute worst.
Big thanks to Freewheel Cycle for actually hooking us up with the bike fit and getting Pete as close as he could to the fit that he needs for this race. I'm hoping I can still crush him, but we'll see what happens. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe so we can make some more.